I want you to turn to 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 7. See, it says, if we condemn the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah by burning them to ashes and made them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly. Mark the word ungodly. And if we rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless. Verse 8, for that righteous man living among them day after day was tormented in his soul by the lawless deeds saw and heard. Now here what we can see is, we can see about Peter talks about Lot's life. Peter talks about the life of Lot, and he brings connection of Sodom Gomorrah to these days. Why he brings that connection? Out of all the example, he's bringing one particular person. He's bringing Sodom Gomorrah, he's bringing Lot, and he's comparing certain things of the days which is going to happen now. And again, I want to take you to Luke chapter 17. Can we go to Luke chapter 17 again? And see, Jesus talks about Lot again. I want to give you the connection. Jesus again talks about Lot. Verse from 30 onwards. Chapter 17. 30, actually 36.
It will be just like this on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, no one who is on the roof of his house with his goods inside should go down to get them. Likewise, no one in the field should go back for anything. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever tries to keep his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. I tell you, on that night, two people will be in one bed. One will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding grain together. One will be taken and the other left.
Wow. Now here Jesus says, is in verse 32, remember Lot's wife. Here Jesus brings an example of Lot's wife, and there Peter talks about an example of Lot's wife. Now for us to understand, we need to go to the original place of what happened exactly in Genesis. So let's turn to Genesis chapter 19. This is very important for us to understand. See, Peter talks that Lot was righteous. Mark the word. Peter says Lot's life was righteous. And Jesus says, look at the life of Lot's wife. And then let's see how it connects with the Genesis chapter 19. Genesis chapter 19. I'm going to read from verse 1. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of city. When he saw them, he got to meet them and bowed down with his face. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them. Verse 6, Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have two daughters. I have two daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Get out of the way, they replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner. Now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The two men said to Lot, Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-laws, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Now, mark this word, very interesting. The angels are asking them, do you have anyone else? As if they don't know that they are angels, they are from God. They should know whether they have sons, daughters, relations, they should know. But here they are asking Lot, do you have anyone else? Daughters or anyone else in the city who belongs to you. Get them out of here because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. In another translation, it says they were laughing at what he said. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife, take your two daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. Now look at verse 16. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his two daughters and led them safely out to the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives. Don't look back and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. Now look at the instruction they are giving. Very important. He says flee. That means run. Run for your life. Secondly first he says run, not walk, not slow, run. Second, he says, don't look back. Third, he says, don't stop anywhere in the plain. These three instructions, sometimes God can tell us. I'll give you what are the reasons. And he gives us where to go. He gives direction. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. Now, these are the instructions they are getting. And look how Lot react. But Lot, whenever you see the word but, you have to mark. But Lot said to them, no, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I will die. Now look at the negative reports he's giving. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared. Look at the word life. Mark the word life, which I was discussing before. He said to him, angels are said to him, very well, I will grant this request. 2. I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you spoke of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it. That is why the town was called Zoar. Now we're going to continue. For now, just hold on. Now, what is happening now here is you need to understand from verse previous chapter, when you are doing homework, go home and do, I mean, when I say go home, after this meeting, you can do your homework. Study chapter 18, chapter 17, from chapter 16. You will see the background, what is happening there about how Abraham interceded and all those stuff. Now, God has already decided to judge Sodom and Gomorrah because of wickedness. God sends 2 angels. But here, the word angels, the word English, they use angels, but actually the translation is messenger. They are human beings like angels. Angels like human being, or human being like angels. Why I say that? It says that in the verse 4, the verse 3, they ate food. And verse 4, they said they were about to go to sleep. They are eating and going to sleep. And then the angels were preparing them. Now see, look at the time they arrived. Verse 1 says they arrived what time? Evening. So just assume, for example, in our UK time mindset, evening is, let's say, for example, 6 p.m. For just for discussion. Maybe different time, but just for discussion. Evening 6 p.m. Around 6 p.m. angels come. Are the angels meeting Lot? Where was Lot? Was he at home? Was he somewhere else? Where was it? On the gateway. Gateway is a place which is like a watchman. He was a watchman. He was doing his gateway. So he was doing his evening shift. Evening shift. It's very interesting if you look at the verse 19, verse 8, chapter 18, verse 17. Before they come to meet Lot, the angels go and speak to Abraham. In the previous chapter, angels go to Abraham, and there 3 people went. 2 angels and Jesus himself went. 3 people went. Jesus stopped with Abraham, and the 2 angels came down. Actually, Abraham was living on the mountains, and Sodom and Gomorrah was on the valley. So they had to come down, because in the previous chapter, the Bible says, in the previous 18th chapter, the angels looked down on Sodom and Gomorrah. The previous chapter. You see, so the Sodom and Gomorrah is on the valley. First we can see they came to meet him in the evening, where he was sitting at the gateway at the city. So that was the entry point where he was there. Why do you think he was sitting? One thing we know, he was sitting there, probably he was working or something. What else made him to sit? I mean, sitting at the doorway or away from near the gateway means he was away from the house, or away from, maybe from the community. What was the reason, do you think, he was doing that? Look at the 2 Peter chapter 2. Answer is there. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. From verse 7, 8, 9. If he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah by burning them to ashes and made them an example, see, he's making them an example for what is going to happen to the ungodly. I mentioned the word to mark the word, but ungodly is not unbelievers. Ungodly is not the people who are not saved. Ungodly are the people who are saved but gone away from the Lord. Godly, ungodly. They were already godly people, but because they decided that they don't want to walk hereafter with the Lord, they are called ungodly. They are not called unbelievers. Unbelievers means they are not believing the Lord, believing Jesus. So today you see many Christians' life are like ungodly. That's why Jesus says in the last days, Even the elect will fall away. That means they are called ungodly. In the lake of fire, in the last days, there will be ungodly people will be into the lake of fire. So ungodly going to happen to the ungodly. If he rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawlessness. See the word they are using? Lawlessness. Write the word lawlessness. Lawlessness means people don't regard the law of God, not the law of the government, law of God. They don't regard the law of God. They have no moral values. They any kind of moral standards. They don't respect the laws of God. Lawlessness for the righteous man living among them day after day was tormented in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds he saw and heard. If this so, then the Lord knows to rescue God. Now it talks about what was the mindset of Lot. He was distressed and by the depraved conduct of the lawlessness. He was tormented by all those stuff that led him to go and live, stand there at the gates. He was so disgusted. He was so much tormented by the things which was happening there. Are you following? Are you following me? The mindset of a righteous person, this is how it should be. The mindset of a righteous person. See, Jesus has made you and me righteous by his blood. Jesus has washed you and me by the blood of Jesus. If we are condoning lawlessness, if you are saying, oh, it's okay, oh, it's poor people, it's okay, no, God understands, it's okay, and this and that, if we try to compromise, our righteous standards will go away. I will show you it happened to Lot. Although he was called righteous, at the end, what happened to Lot? At the end, he lost all what the Lord has on earthly blessings. Now here, this was his mindset. In the beginning, why God called him as a righteous person? Because he was a person who had the heart of God, in the sense, verse 7 says, who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless. He was distressed. He was rejecting, he was really having the anger of God for that righteous man, because he was a righteous man he was living among them. Although he was living among them day by day, was tormented. See, look at the word torment. Torment is so very, very high, strong word. He was tormented in his righteous soul by the lawless deeds he saw. Every day he saw so much of wickedness, gay activities, all those agendas, so many things, and he heard all those. And now let's go back to Genesis chapter 9. So because he was going through that lifestyle, he couldn't bear off what's happening. He was at the gate. Whenever you go through so much of struggle and so much of stress, what do you feel that you want to do? You want to be away from everyone. You want to be away from everything. That's the usual reaction. Am I right? When you go through a lot of stress,
Yes.
so much of torment, what is the first thing you do? You say, I want to go away. I want to be alone. That's what he was doing. He was away from everything. That's how much torment and stress and so much of stuff going on for Lot. And his reaction was, I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to be part of what they are doing. I want to be away from it. He physically cut off himself from that. That is how we are supposed to do. When we see something happening, when we see unrighteousness happening, we should not be part of it. We should cut off the ties. Even though I'll see how, although in the beginning he did that, but at the end, he did a wrong mistake. Let's turn to Genesis chapter 19 again. Now we will see in detail what happened to him. Second point, second good was for him, for God to choose him or decide him as a righteous person. What happened was, see, I will show you something else. I want to show you something else. Can you go to Genesis chapter 18? God speak to himself. I want to show you something that God himself speak to himself. God speak to himself about Abraham. And chapter 18, verse 1, it says, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre. While here is very interesting. Lord himself is appearing to Abraham at the tree while he was sitting at the entrance of his tent. It's all at the entrance. This is very important, very strategic. Lot of time God appears in those kind of circumstances. For Abraham, Lord himself appeared. Abraham looked up and saw there are men standing nearby. Saw three men standing. Now there's three men. When he saw them, he hurried to the entrance of the tent to meet them and bow down low to the ground. And then you can see he comes and he cooks food and all those stuff. After they had meals, it talks about the blessing about Sarah going to have a child and all those stuff. Now look at verse 16. This is where it starts about Sodom and Gomorrah. When the men got up to leave, now they got up to leave. Three of them, they had meals, everything fine. Now they got up. Now it says still using the word men. Still didn't use the word angel. They got up to leave. They looked down. As soon as they got up, the first thing they saw, look down. Sodom and Gomorrah is down. Looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked with them to see them on their way. Abraham also walked with them. So then the Lord said, he's speaking. Jesus, the Lord is speaking to himself. Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Now God is going to do something. He's speaking to himself. Shall I hide? I don't think it's a good thing I should share. He's saying I should share this. Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all the nations on the earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children. This is a very important thing. Why God choose you and me? Look here. God chose Abraham not to just to be multiply, have children. He says here, verse 19, for I have chosen him. Why did God choose him? So that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about Abraham what he has promised him. Now, why God chooses us as Christians? Why God chooses us as his children? Is it because we are much more better than others? This is the reason. In verse 19, he gives three important points. He says, so that we will direct our children. He will direct his children and his household in what? In the way of the Lord. And then after he has decided that, and he says in verse 20, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down. I'm thinking, look here, I will go down and see if what they have done is bad as the cry that has reached me. If not, I will know. Can you ask yourself, why does God have to come down to see? Can't God know? Doesn't God know when he's already wherever he is? Can't he identify? Why do you think God has to come down? Now here the verse 20 says, verse 20, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is too great. He sees outcry is so great and their sin is so grievous. He already know that. God already know it's so great and so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the out. Why does he go down? See, the reason there it says that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. That means, see, this is the beauty of God. God itself is so sovereign. He's all powerful. He knows everything. Jesus Christ, God doesn't have to come into this world to die on the cross. He can do it in one blow, one go, anything. Why he has to come down? Because he comes, he doesn't watch sin from the God's point of view. He comes down as a human point of view, and he goes through the same process of human mindset to understand sin. Because God understands sin as God. He knows he's God. He knows, so he has already given the report. They are sinful, they are so grievous, they are so wicked. That's the point of view from the holy God point of view, as a God, as all-powerful God. Now he comes down as God, but as a human being. He's eating with Abraham, he's sitting down, and he's moving, and he's coming down, and he's coming down as a human standard. And he want to experience that real standard, real experience that you and I are going through. That is the heart of God. That is the real heart of God. Jesus would have just not come. He would have just come. Suddenly he said, remember he said, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, when they came to arrest, what did he say? If I call one say, the legions of angels will come. But because it's God's will that I should go through this, that I am going through this. So God, although he's all-powerful God, he wants to come down and he wants to have that experience you and I having, to know exactly what's, so that he wants to partake with the suffering and the pain and the struggle and everything you and I going through. That is why Jesus went through the same struggle, the pain, the everything. In Isaiah 53, he went through everything you and I went through. That is why here he says in the verse 21, he says, I will go down and see if what they have done is bad as the outcry that has reached me. The outcry which was reached me, let me go also and have that experience, the physical experience. Now verse 22, that the men turned away and went down to Sodom. But Abraham, look here very carefully. The men turned away and went down to Sodom, but, look at the word, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. That means two people went away. Who was waiting there? The Lord was there and Abraham was with the Lord. Lord didn't go, only the two men, angels, they went down. And now you can see Abraham starts interceding for Sodom. He started with how many? 50. In verse 24, he started pleading to the Lord. 50 people, then 45, 40, 35, 30, like that keeps coming down up to verse 32 to 10. And then the Lord returned and went back. What I want to show you is there was a groundwork going on where Abraham was standing in the gap for Lot's sakes. I don't know whether you remember before in the previous chapters, if you read, Lot was kidnapped by one of the kings. There was a battle in Sodom and Gomorrah. When Lot was kidnapped by the kings, Abraham went and fought those Sodom and Gomorrah kings and rescued Lot. Anyone remember? Anyone remember that story that Lot was kidnapped by the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham has to go and physically win the battle and come and rescue Lot. Yeah. So when he won that battle, why did he go to fight the battle? For the sake of Lot. See, now Abraham is fighting another battle for Lot. That's a spiritual battle. First, he was fighting the battle physically for Lot. Now he's fighting spiritual battle for Lot because his nephew and his brother's son. So he's fighting this battle. Because of that battle, because of that intercession, God sends those angels exactly at the time where Lot was at the gate. Gate is an entrance for a place. Gate is always an entrance for a place. And what did Jesus say in the Revelation chapter 22? Behold, I am standing at the door and knocking. If anyone's opened that's what's happening there. The angels came in the time where Lot and angels were meeting, and God tested his heart whether it's really Lot going to receive them or reject them. That is why in the chapter 2 Peter chapter 2, it says, Lot was a person who was really against of the things of the world, and he was with the things of the God. Let's go back. I want to show you very important. Why am I talking this is the condition of our heart in these days, how we should live in these times. How we should live in these times, that what are the condition of the heart that God is expecting us to live, because God can really see no matter how much we try to go in a circle or whatever we do, he can see. 2 Peter, it says in verse 9, 8 and 9, in the verse 7, why did God rescue him? Because as a righteous man, because he was completely opposite to the world. He was completely living a lifestyle against of the demand of the world or the attraction of the world. And it says in verse 9, if this is so, then the Lord knows how to rescue a godly from trials and to hold the unrighteous for punishment on that day of judgment. This is especially true of those who follow the corrupt desire of the flesh and despise authority. So what we can learn here is God gave a chance to Lot to prove himself that he is worthy to receive the righteousness of God. God gave him a chance at his gate. At the entrance point, God gave by sending 2 angels to Lot, because Abraham was standing in the gap for Lot, for his spiritual life. But let's see what happens at the end. This is where it's very important. It's not the beginning of our spiritual life or Christian life is important. It's the end of our spiritual life is important. So let's go back to Genesis 19 and see from verse what happened after the judgment of God, from verse 23. Now we know so far God, he came and he looked after the strangers, and now they are in a rush. They're going to overthrow the city. Verse 23. Can you read from verse 23? By the time Lot reached Zoar. Now, what is happening is God said to, or the angel said to Lot and his family, be quick, we have to destroy the city because you are delaying. In verse 16, verse 19, chapter 19, verse 16, when the angels wanted to destroy, he said something to the people. He said something to Lot. He asked them, we are going to destroy. He said to them, we are going to destroy, and we want you to get ready. We want you to take your children. We want you to take whoever is with you, your family. And they asked them, whoever is with you, can you go? But Lot, his Bible says in verse 16, hesitated. Can you see that word, hesitated? Can everybody see the word hesitated? Others are, what does your translation say? How many are following with me? Verse 16. Verse 16. Genesis chapter 19, verse 16. Right. Any other translation? It says lingered. Lingered. Now, why did he hesitate and linger? Why did Lot? Now he can see. Now I was telling you I was asking you to remember the previous day evening. In previous day evening, the angels comes and meets him, and the day in the verse 15 says, with the coming of the dawn, that the following day morning, around probably let's say 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, dawn. That means about 12 hours out, about literally 12 hours, they were having this hustle and bustle. People were coming to knock at the door, asking for the men to come out, and they were having back and forth issues going on. And then there were all these things going on. About 12 hours, they were battling. And one of the things Lot was doing was hesitant, lingering. Why do you think that he was hesitant to go? The verse 14, that they are answering there. The verse 14 is, he had 2 son-in-laws for his daughters to marry. It says they were to marry. And they were not serious with what he was saying. They were not serious about the destruction. See, destruction is going to come any moment. Any moment, Sodom Gomorrah is going to be destroyed. All of his things is going to be destroyed. All of this city is going to be destroyed, including his son-in-law. Put yourself, your family is there, your 2 children are there. Angels are coming and saying, you need to move this house, move and go to somewhere else. Wherever you are, leave and go. And then imagine you have 2 family members, also you need to tell. And the angels are asking you, do you have any of your family members? Oh, please bring them. And you are going and telling them. And by the time you go and tell them, they are laughing at you. Oh, what is this? You are saying, Lord is coming, Jesus is coming, end times are coming, judgment is coming, and they are laughing at you. How will you think in your heart? Will you see, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Okay, I am saved. Let them get destroyed. Let my auntie, my mom, my father, my sister-in-law, brother, all destroyed. It's okay. Hallelujah. And I'm running away. You will feel the hesitancy. You will feel, oh God, please save my family. Oh God, please, you will really struggle and battle. That was the hesitancy Lot was having. Hesitant. He was reluctant. He was not really willing to move there. He was lingering there because he was thinking, if my son-in-laws die, what's going to happen for my daughters? My daughter will not have a life, a future life, marriage life. But do you think God doesn't know that? Do you think God doesn't know? This is where we go wrong. This is where a lot of time we try to help God. This is one area. I want you to really, really mark this. When God makes a decision, do not help God by giving shortcuts. When God makes a decision saying, leave now. What did the angels do? Verse 16 says, the angels grasp their hands. They forcefully hold the hand and drag them. Lot's hand, wife's hand, the two daughters, let them grab. Bible says they grabbed their hands, they held their hands, grasped their hands, and led them where? To the entrance of the city. They took them to the entrance of the city. Why do you think they took them to the entrance of the city? So that when somebody is taken to the entrance of the city, that means from God is expecting from there, don't turn back. He didn't leave at the entrance of the door. He took them out of the entrance of the city. That means don't turn back. Just go. And the instruction was given, 4 instructions. Flee for your lives. That means run for your lives. Don't look back. I mentioned before. Don't stop anywhere in the plain. That means don't stop in your normal places, in the plain. Don't stop in the normal position, the places that you think is right. Go mountains, upward. Then upward, who is there up? Who is living upwards? His uncle is living there. Go there. So what is God doing is, God is creating a life for them. God is designing a life for them. But see how Lot says. Look what Lot says. God is deciding a future for them. God is deciding a future for his wife, for his daughters, for Lot. And look what Lot says in 18. He says, but Lot said, no. He said, no. No, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me. As if they don't know that he's telling that. To me, sparing my life, but I can't flee. See, God is saying flee. He's saying I can't flee. This is what we do. This is what in our lives. When God says for us to do something, we do the opposite or we decide the opposite. If we don't have the ability to do something, God doesn't expect us to do that. God will always ask us to do something when we can do something. In your life, if God is asking you to do something, stick to the instruction of God, the word of God. Don't try to run away or don't try to do exemption. Doesn't matter it's taking, if God says, go up to the mountains, if it's difficult, go. Because here it says, he said to flee to the mountains. He said to flee to the mountain. And he comes and says, Lot comes and says, oh, I can't do it. He says, I can't do it. I can't run. And you know what he suggests? He gives another suggestion. What does Lot suggestion? What is the suggestion of Lot? He says, oh, there is a small town over there. There's a small village. Can I go there? He says, and then the angels have to change their plan. Angels have to change their plan. Look at the verse 19. Your servant verse. If I have found mercy, kindness, please to me in sparing my life, but I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me and I will die. In the previous verse, it says, the previous verse 17, it says, go to the mountains, otherwise you will be swept away. Angel says, go to the mountains, you will be swept away. But Lot comes and says, I can't run because I will be swept away. Look at the analyze with the human standard and look at the analyze of God's standard. God is saying, go up so that you will not be swept away. But Lot is coming and saying, no, I can't run, otherwise I will be swept away. Look at the analyzing, the way we evaluate things, and look at the way God evaluates things. Are you following this? Is very important, because this is how we do daily activities or daily things based on our understanding. Are you really understanding? How is your life plan? Are you planning with what God asked you to plan? Understand is right for you. Here, God is giving them 4 instructions. God is saying, flee for your lives. That means run. Flee means is run, not walk, slow. No, don't look back. Second instruction. That means don't look at your past. Don't compare yourself with your past. Focus front and run. And then thirdly, it says don't stop anywhere along the plain. Three things. Flee, don't look back, don't stop. And the place high, run up mountains. But the opposite thing he said was, I can't run. I want to go to the plain. That means I want to go somewhere. He says, can I go to the place near to the town? Let me go to that place. And look at the result, what happened to in verse 21. He said to him, very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly because I cannot do anything until. So they went to that city. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun has risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of heaven. Thus he overthrew the cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities. See the next verse, very important. Also the vegetation in the land. But the Lot's wife looked back. What the instruction they said? Don't look back. And she became a pillar of salt. Don't look back. She did that. Secondly, they said don't stay in the plain. Second one was Lot stayed in the plain. They stayed in the lower places. All three instruction with God said they rejected. All three instructions. First he said flee. He said I can't flee. Second he said don't turn back. They turned back. She turned back. And then they found a nearby place. Now verse 27. Early the next morning, Abraham got up to return to the place where he had stood before the Lord. So again, he came to the place he was interceding. See, look at the heart of Abraham. He is continually interceding. He goes to the same place, continually interceding. He says, early in the morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he stood before the Lord, where he interceded before the Lord. He looked down towards Sodom Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain. He saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of catastrophe that overthrow the cities where Lot has lived. Now, finally, they decided God protected Lot because of the prayer and interceding for Abraham. Now look at what is the consequence of their rejecting the instructions. This is the thing you need to look. Verse 30. Look at verse 30. The consequence of why when they rejected, what happened? Lot and his two daughters. Now wife became a pillar. Lot is there. The two daughters are there. Left Zoar. Now see, Lot went to Zoar and they were planning to settle there. But see in verse 30 it says, Lot and his daughter left Zoar and settled in the mountains. For he was what? Why did he go? Why did he leave Zoar, the place that he himself chose? What was the reason? What does the word say there? He was afraid to stay there. He and his two daughters lived where? In a cave. They were isolated, locked down. They were also having lockdown. And see what happened. Now you know the story the daughters did against the father. And they had Look at the end. Look at the end, what happened. When God chose, although the Bible in 2 Peter chapter 2 said that he was a righteous man, God chose him and saved him as a righteous man. But the end, look at the end, what happened. He lost his wife, he became a drunkard, and he lost the morale of two daughters. Whole family is destroyed. Now tell me, what is the purpose of having a righteous life there and destroying the whole thing? What is the purpose of starting good? Everything was good. He invited the angels, he invited and he did everything in the beginning. And because of that, God saved Lot and his wife and his children. But he lost his wife. After that, he lost his children, moral values, and he also became a drunkard. Now, how can we say, now how can we evaluate this now? That is why Jesus says a warning. One particular person he talks about is Lot's wife. Why did Jesus talk about Lot's wife? What did he disobey? What did she disobey? Do you think just for turning back someone God will punish? Do you think just for like, okay, I'm telling you or you are telling me, oh brother, don't turn back. I'm going turning back. Just for turning back, do you think God is going to punish? Look at the verse 17, Luke. Coming back, Luke verse 17. It shows why she turned back. Imagine you are Lot's wife. Put yourself into Lot's wife. You are given 12 hours to leave. 12 hours to leave. Just 12 hours. The police officer is coming and saying there's going to be an earthquake in your house. Will you just leave like that? After we leave that, you suddenly remember, oh my God, I left my passport. Oh, I left my saris. I left my jewelry. I left my money bag. I left my this. I left my that. After, while you're running, look at the verse 30. Read. Can everyone read that, please? Loud. Someone read loud. Verse 30 to verse 32.
It will be just like this on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, no one who is on the roof of his house with his goods inside should go down to get them. Likewise, no one in the field should go back for anything. Remember Lot's wife.
Hold on. Why he remember Lot's wife? He mentioned the list and says, remember Lot's wife. Because Lot's wife turned, suddenly she remembered something. Oh, I left this, I left that. That is why Genesis chapter 19 says, God destroyed the land of Sodom and Gomorrah and its vegetation. And its vegetation. This is where a lot of Christians are going to be shaken. Remember I told you last beginning of the year, God is going to touch individual Christians' life. When your heart is full of the possession on the earth, if your heart is full of the things of the earth, it says in verse 33, when two people will sleep in one bed, who are the two people sleep in one bed? Husband and wife. Husband and wife sleep in one bed. That's why it says here. The reason God is specifically mentioning this in the last days is going to come into our hearts. Same way, see, God is the one who created everything. God is the one who created the marriage. God is the one who created the family life. God is the one who created husband, wife, children, thing, everything. But why did God punish Lot's wife without punishing at that time Lot? Because Lot's wife's heart was with the possessions. Here it says, Lot's hearts was with the earthly things completely filled. That is why she couldn't go straight. She has to turn back. She has to think about that. So today, as a Christian, when put yourself, if you are being given 12 hours to live, I told you 12 hours from evening to morning, next time 12 hours roughly. Will you see God and run towards Him? Or will you do one of those? Lot also did the mistake. Lot's wife also did the mistake. Cost their whole life. Lot did the mistake and lost his 2 daughters. Wife did a mistake, Lot lost herself. Lot became a drunkard. Sorry, 2 children. And Lot's wife lost herself. Why? Because they didn't stick to the instructions. They didn't stick to the instruction. Why they couldn't stick to the instruction? Because Lot's wife's heart was full of possession in their hearts. That is why Jesus says in Luke chapter 17, verse 30, remember Lot's wife. He says, remember. What to remember? These are the things to remember. Seek your heart and prepare your heart and see whether is your heart right before the Lord. Today, many people say, yeah, I can do this. I want to do this for the Lord. But when it comes, because it's between you and the Lord, you cannot, your wife cannot stand for you. You cannot stand for your wife. You cannot stand for your children. Children cannot stand for you. You have to stand for the Lord. You have to decide. When you decide and when you are right, it will protect your wife, your husband, your children. When you follow the instruction of the Lord, 3 instructions God said, run, don't turn back, and don't stop here. 3 things. When the things happen, when these days, when the things are when things are going all chaos, one side coronavirus, so many things, he says, run towards him. Run towards the Lord. Not walk, not slowly, run, flee. Bible used the word flee. Second, he says, don't look back. Don't look at the past. Don't look at what you left. Look at your past life. Don't look at your past mistakes. Don't look at your this. Secondly, don't choose your own comfort zone. That's what Lot did. He said to comfort, oh, let me go to the village. This is easy. When God said to run, he said, no, I can't run. When God said not to go to that place, God want to destroy everything. No, I want to go to that place. God has to see, because one of the reason the children was destroyed, because he has to go into that village, Zoar. If he did not go to the village, if he went to the mountains, his daughters would have had a good marriage life. His daughters would have had a good future. And he would have not ended up in a drunkard life. He would have gone up. God said to go to the mountains. Mountains where the uncle is, Abraham is. Abraham who stand in the gap. Wrong mistakes in our life. But God gives us time. The first time, Lot made a mistake by going to Sodom and Gomorrah. If you read the chapter 17 in Genesis, the Bible says he camped outside Sodom and Gomorrah. He was not inside. But when the time he was captive, he was inside the Sodom and Gomorrah, physically captive. And then God had to send Abraham to protect Lot. This time, he was already inside Sodom and Gomorrah. But because of Abraham stood in the gap for Sodom and Gomorrah, God protected. See, Abraham stood for 10 people. Because of 10 people, God said up from 50, interceding, 40, 35, 30, up to 10. God gave 10 lives to spare. Out of that, only 4 lives came out. Out of that, 3 escaped. Out of that, all 3 who escaped, the life went off. So even though God says Lot was a righteous person, but at the end, his life, he destroyed everything. He lost everything.